Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about something that seems very simple at first, but actually causes a lot of problems for English learners. It's a question you hear all the time in real life, especially at work or at school, and that question is, how was your weekend? The question is easy, but the answer is where many people get stuck.
Yes, exactly. A lot of learners know how to say something like it was good or it was fine, but then they stop, and the conversation just kind of dies. So today we want to help you sound more natural, more confident, and also help you continue the conversation instead of ending it too quickly.
Right, because in real life, people don't just give one short answer and walk away. Usually, they add a few details, maybe share a small story, or even ask a question back. That's how real conversations work, and that's exactly what we're going to practice today.
So let's imagine a very typical situation. It's Monday morning, you come to work or to class, you see your friend or your colleague, and they smile and ask you, "Hey, how was your weekend?" This is your moment to speak, and we're going to show you how to do it naturally.
Alright, let's start with a simple example, but we'll make it a bit more detailed so you can see how to build your answer step by step. Sophia, go ahead and ask me the question.
Hey Alex, how was your weekend? Did you do anything interesting, or was it just a relaxing couple of days?
It was actually really nice. I didn't do anything too exciting, but I had a chance to relax, which I really needed after a busy week. I stayed at home for most of the time, watched a few movies, and caught up on some sleep because I was pretty tired.
That already sounds much more natural than just saying it was good. You gave a general opinion, and then you added some details, which makes your answer more interesting and easier to continue.
Exactly. So if you want to sound more natural, you can think of your answer in two parts. First, you give a general feeling, like it was great or it was pretty relaxing, and then you add one or two details about what you actually did.
Let me try another example so you can hear a different version. Imagine I had a more active weekend. I could say something like, "It was great, actually. I went out with some friends on Saturday, and on Sunday I spent some time with my family. It was really fun and a bit busy, but in a good way."
That's perfect, because now we can clearly imagine what your weekend looked like. You didn't just give one word, you gave a small story, and that's what makes your English sound more natural and more engaging.
Also, notice that you don't need to use very complicated grammar or difficult words. Everything we're saying is quite simple, but the key is how you combine these sentences together to express a complete idea.
Right. For example, you can start with phrases like "it was really nice," "it was pretty good," "it was kind of busy," or even "it was a bit boring," to be honest, if you didn't do much. All of these sound natural in everyday conversation.
And don't be afraid to be honest. If your weekend was boring, you can say it. In fact, sometimes that makes the conversation more interesting, because the other person might ask you why, or suggest something for next weekend.
Let's do another quick roleplay, but this time we'll make it sound a bit more like a real conversation where both people talk more. Sophia, ask me again, but maybe in a slightly different way.
Hey Alex, how was your weekend? I feel like it went by so fast this time, I didn't even have time to rest properly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. My weekend felt pretty short too, but it was still nice overall. On Saturday, I went for a walk in the park because the weather was really good, and later I met a friend for coffee. Then on Sunday, I mostly stayed at home and prepared a few things for the upcoming week.
That sounds like a really balanced weekend. You had some time outside, you met someone, and you also had time to relax and get ready for the week, which is actually very realistic for most people.
Yeah, and this is exactly the kind of answer you should aim for. Not too short, not too long, just a few sentences that clearly explain what you did and how you felt about it.
Now let's talk about something important. After you answer the question, you usually ask something back. This is how you keep the conversation going and make it feel natural instead of one-sided.
Yes, this is a very important habit. So after you say something like "it was really nice, I relaxed and watched some movies," you can simply add, "What about you?" Or "How was your weekend?"
Let me show you how it sounds in a full example. It was pretty relaxing, actually. I didn't do much, just stayed at home and watched a couple of shows. What about you? Did you do anything interesting?
That's perfect, because now the conversation continues, and the other person has a chance to speak. This is exactly how real conversations work in English-speaking environments.
Also, you can react to what the other person says. For example, if I tell you I went hiking, you can say something like, "Oh, that sounds great," or "That must have been really fun," and then maybe ask a follow-up question.
Right, and we're going to practice that in the next part, where we'll show you how to react, ask better questions, and keep the conversation flowing naturally for a longer time.
We'll also show you more examples, including different types of weekends, like busy weekends, lazy weekends, and even unexpected or unusual ones, so you'll be ready for any situation.
So make sure you're ready, because we're going to build on what you've learned so far and take your speaking skills to the next level. Alright, so now that you know how to answer the question, how was your weekend? With a bit more detail, let's take it one step further and focus on how to keep the conversation going naturally, because this is where real communication begins and where many learners still feel a bit unsure.
Yes, exactly. Answering the question is just the first step, but real conversations are about interaction. You listen, you react, and you ask something back. So let's continue our situation. I'll tell you about my weekend, and you try to respond like a real person would, not like a textbook.
Sounds good, let's do it.
So, my weekend was actually really busy. On Saturday, I went hiking with a couple of friends, and it took almost the whole day because we went pretty far outside the city. Then on Sunday, I had to visit my relatives, so I didn't really have much time to rest.
Wow, that sounds like a full weekend. Hiking for a whole day can be pretty exhausting, especially if you're not used to it, but I guess it was worth it if the weather was nice and the views were good. Where exactly did you go?
We went to a place not too far from the mountains, and the view was honestly amazing. At some point, we just stopped and sat there for a while because it was so quiet and peaceful. It felt like a complete break from the city.
That actually sounds really nice. I like those kinds of moments when you can just slow down and enjoy the surroundings, especially after a stressful week. Do you go hiking often, or was it more of a special plan for this weekend?
I don't do it very often, to be honest. It was more of a spontaneous idea. One of my friends suggested it, and we all agreed, even though we weren't really prepared for such a long trip.
Yeah, sometimes those spontaneous plans turn out to be the best ones. Even if you feel a bit tired afterward, you still get a good experience and something interesting to talk about on Monday.
Exactly, and that's actually a good point for learners. Even a simple weekend can become interesting if you describe how you felt or what made it special, not just what you did.
Right. For example, instead of saying I stayed at home, you can say something like, I stayed at home, but I finally had time to relax and watch a series I've been putting off for a long time, and suddenly it sounds more meaningful.
Yes, and you can also add small details to make your story more vivid. Like, what did you watch, who were you with, or why it was important for you to rest. These little things make your English sound more natural and personal.
Let's try another example, but this time I'll describe a different kind of weekend, maybe something a bit unexpected. So, my weekend didn't go exactly as planned. I wanted to relax, but something came up.
Oh really? What happened?
Well, on Saturday morning, I realized that I had a lot of things to do that I completely forgot about during the week. So instead of resting, I spent most of the day running errands, cleaning my apartment, and organizing a few things that I had been postponing.
That sounds a bit stressful, especially when you expect to rest but end up being busy instead. Did you at least manage to relax on Sunday?
Yeah, a little bit. On Sunday, I tried to slow down and take it easy. I didn't go anywhere, just stayed at home, watched something light, and tried not to think too much about work. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing.
That's still a very realistic weekend, and I think many people can relate to that. Not every weekend is exciting, and that's completely fine. The important thing is how you talk about it.
Exactly. You don't need an amazing story. You just need to describe your experience clearly and naturally. Even a boring weekend can become a good conversation if you explain it well.
Also, don't forget about follow-up questions. After someone tells you about their weekend, you can ask simple things like, who did you go with? How was it? Did you enjoy it? Or would you do it again?
Yes, these questions are very important because they show that you're interested and help the conversation continue. Without them, the conversation can feel a bit flat or short.
Let's do one final full conversation example where we include everything: an answer, details, reactions, and follow-up questions, just like in real life.
Alright, let's go for it.
Hey Alex, how was your weekend? Did you finally get some rest after that busy week you had?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. I didn't do anything too special, but I really needed some time to recharge. On Saturday, I just stayed at home, watched a couple of movies, and ordered some food, which was really nice. Then on Sunday, I went out for a short walk because the weather was great, and it helped me clear my mind a bit. What about you? How was your weekend?
It was quite nice as well, but a bit more active than yours. I met some friends on Saturday evening, and we spent a few hours just talking and catching up, which I really enjoyed because we hadn't seen each other in a while. Then on Sunday, I tried to relax, but I also did some small things around the house to prepare for the week.
That sounds like a good mix of social time and productivity. It's always nice to see friends, especially if you haven't met them for a long time. Where did you guys go?
We went to a small cafe in the city center. It wasn't anything fancy, but the atmosphere was really cozy, and we ended up staying there longer than we expected.
Yeah, those are usually the best places, where you just feel comfortable and don't notice how time passes. Sounds like you had a really enjoyable weekend overall.
Yeah, I definitely did. And now I feel a bit more ready for the new week, even though I wish weekends were just a little longer.
I think everyone feels that way.
So now it's your turn to practice. Try to think about your last weekend and describe it in a few sentences, just like we did.
And don't forget to include how you felt, what you did, and maybe one or two small details to make your answer more interesting.
And of course, if you're practicing with someone, always ask a question back to keep the conversation going.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you next time, bye.